Today we will explore the possible outcome of a clash between two powerful armies of their time, and find out whether Rome could have withstood an army that existed 1,000 years after it. Any modern army can easily destroy a force from 1,000 years ago in just a few hours. But was that also true for Rome? Let's find out. To begin with, we need to determine which time periods we'll be analyzing. On the Roman side, I suggest taking the army of the year 120 AD. That was when Rome was at the height of its power. At that time, the Emperor Hadrian ruled the empire. He actively fortified Rome's borders and implemented various military reforms. But what army should we choose from the medieval side? After much consideration, I decided on the English army from the 100 Years' War, around the year 1400. During this period, England was at war with France, which allows us to assess its military strength with the most historical accuracy. Let's dive into the analysis. I would like to start with the Roman army, primarily because it existed much earlier. The Roman military had a structure very similar to that of modern armies and numbered around 300,000 legionaries, along with approximately the same number of auxiliary troops. These auxiliaries included archers, light cavalry, and other non-citizen warriors. Each legion also had its own cavalry unit, which totaled about 70,000 horsemen armed with long two-handed spears. The Roman army was exceptionally well prepared and had an excellent system of command and logistics. Engineers and builders followed the legions everywhere, constructing roads to allow for the rapid movement of supplies and reinforcements. Legionaries were well armed and highly trained, making them a formidable and nearly unbeatable force on the battlefield. The Roman army was experienced in warfare and had a seasoned corps capable of facing any enemy. Now, let's move on to the English army and examine the advantages they had on their side. Let's begin with the structure of the army, which underwent significant changes. Medieval armies were most often levies assembled from the vassal subjects, who were not trained in the art of war, and the English army was no exception. What about technological progress? It certainly existed, and the first thing worth mentioning is the creation of the longbow. It quickly gained popularity in Europe due to its many advantages. Most notably, it had a deadly effective range of around 200 meters. This allowed archers to attack cavalry from a distance, and by the 14th century, nearly half of England's regular army was equipped with such bows. English longbows were extremely effective against cavalry and could pierce almost any armor, including plate armor, allowing them to destroy both heavy infantry and enemy cavalry. Another key advantage of the medieval army was the invention of the stirrup. This seemingly simple innovation played a crucial role in the emergence of the iconic knight, which we'll now discuss. Knights were undoubtedly the most significant and recognizable symbol of the Middle Ages, at the very least, because they were the main strike force of the army. Knights were extremely expensive, and their numbers rarely exceeded 700, but that was often enough to defeat larger infantry forces. They were fully clad in plate armor and armed with long lances that could effectively break through enemy ranks. The knight's horse was also critical, and it was often protected by chainmail or leather armor. A fully armored knight weighed around 120 kilograms, and not every horse could bear such weight. With that, we've covered most of the key advantages and innovations developed over the course of 1,000 years. Now, let's summarize and try to determine the likely outcome of a clash between these two great powers. In the event of a war between England and Rome, Rome would undoubtedly be the victor. The Roman army had greater numbers and virtually limitless reserves, posing a threat to England both on land and at sea. Most likely, in the early stages of the war, England might have won a few battles thanks to new technologies and their knights, something the Romans had never encountered before. However, once Rome deployed even 20% of its military strength, the English army would have been quickly destroyed. Of course, the English could have retreated into castles and fortified strongholds, but Rome had vast experience in capturing heavily defended cities and possessed siege engines, catapults, and towers designed specifically for such assaults. In conclusion, it's fair to say that almost any medieval European army stood no chance against Rome, either individually or even all together. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next video.